Hello, this is Mark Holmes, the editorial director of Via Satellite, and we're back for another of our Thursday morning conversations. We've done quite a few of them now. This time we're going to Canada to talk to Norm Haughton, who's someone I know very well, who plays a key role in Air Canada's in-flight connectivity program. We'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. But Norm, firstly, before we talk about that, how's life in Canada? How's life under lockdown been for you?
Well, I mean, to say the least, it's challenging. Being somebody in the tourism space and travel, it's tough not being able to socialize and travel. We're going through the motions, but I mean, all things being equal, everybody's healthy, the family's doing good, and the company seems to be on a trajectory to get out of this slump. So.
Fantastic. I mean, one of the things we've been asking people, I know you've got a family as well, is what have you been watching? What sort of movies, dramas, any recommendations? We've had quite a wide range so far. So what have you been watching?
Yeah, so I've been on The Mandalorian and a lot of Disney. I have a little guy, he's turning 4, outside of daycare with no other stimulation outside of what we can structurally provide. On the downtime, we get into Disney. So The Mandalorian seems to be my favorite. But yeah, that's kind of it for now.
We subscribe to Disney Plus ourselves, so I've already clocked, I think, three times I've watched Frozen 2. So I actually don't know, but yeah, my daughter's almost 4, so we definitely got our Disney Plus. What about yourself? I mean, aside from when you're watching stuff with the kids, what sort of movies do you like, or what sort of TV do you like?
Yeah, so I'm into the action adventure type, Marvel type series. Outside of that, docus, especially on the business side, I find super interesting. So yeah, I've been keeping up.
Can you give us a documentary recently that you've watched that you thought was particularly powerful, particularly good?
Oh yeah, so there's one that Al Gore did on greenhouse emissions and essentially conserve the planet. I thought that was super interesting, especially that it spoke to us directly in terms of how we can contribute to the betterment of society in terms of our public health, and it is a crisis in terms of where we're heading with the current state of global warming.
And what about, I mean, one of the other things, we talk a lot of people about their music taste and music interest, concerts they've been to. I don't believe you and I have ever spoken about music before, so I'm kind of curious as to, what you listen to in whatever spare time you get.
Yeah, so you know what? So I'm Jamaican. I was born out of a music culture.
Okay.
I found myself going back in the day, listening to a lot of Bob Marley. Especially in these turbulent times, right? He's kind of been my consoler in chief, trying to get me through all the different things going on in the globe around the world. Whether it's COVID or it's issues along the lines of anti-Black racism and just Black and whole in society.
How often do you get to Jamaica? Do you still have family there?
I do, yeah. Most of my family are still there. Generally, in a year, I'd be down maybe four or 5 times. I mean, I do work for an airline, and we're not that far out. So yeah, I'm there quite often. Yeah, can't wait to get back on a jet and then go exploring.
I can imagine. My wife's from Trinidad and Tobago, so I've done like one trip to Trinidad, which was very interesting because obviously it's not one of the more touristy islands in the Caribbean, but it was very interesting history, and we got sort of a private cricket ground, which was a lot of fun as well. Not that I'm a huge cricket fan, but it was good. But yeah, we'll get on to some of those issues a little bit later. But let's talk about Air Canada IFC. I mean, next week we have our Global Connected Aircraft Cabin Chats, our first virtual event.
Right.
I'm delighted that Norm will be speaking among a great speaker lineup that we have, talking about the future. I mean, we obviously all know it's a tough time for sort of airlines. They're only really now starting to sort of fly again. What's it been like for you as someone that's been in charge of one of the key programs within the company, and and a very ambitious program? I mean, just from your experience this last 3 months, tell us a little bit about what it's been like.
I mean, it's been heartbreaking, right? We spent the significant the last 10 years building up this company to where it was just 3 months ago, and a lot of that has been eroded, right, through the virus and the restrictions that the various governments have put in. So yeah, it has been tough. We've seen a significant drop in use of the systems, and a lot of these systems are brand new. We just installed them. We've seen through public announcements, what happened to Air Canada Rouge, understanding that IFC was a key part of that product offering for that airline, and now seeing, the devastation there. It is heartbreaking and tough. And also, we've all lost team members throughout this whole pandemic, just because there's just not enough to go around anymore. So to ensure that we can survive, we had to make some drastic cuts. So it hurts all over, but there is a silver lining, and I think we're starting to see a bit of that. So my hope is that we can ramp back up as fast as possible, get back to what we call normal, and get people back to work.
And I mean, in-flight connectivity, I mean, we've discussed it numerous times down the years, and been seen as very important as a way of improving the passenger experience, improving operations. Will it be more important than ever in this post-COVID era, or is it something that will be stripped back as a result of less capital expenditure plans?
Well, at least for us, right? We've already made a commitment to be a company that embraces in-flight Wi-Fi and in-flight connectivity. So I think it's already there, and we were on the cusp of completing 100% our fleet. So there's 1 or 2 airplanes left outside the broader umbrella, and right now the strategy is to complete that. That said, the data is not showing us right now, obviously, that connectivity is going to be as liked as it was in the past. I think we're going to have a lot of work to do in recrafting what the product looks like in front of the customer to get their engagement back up. But a part of me does believe that eventually the staying connected will help with anxiety on board. Right, there'll be a lot of people going back on board with pent-up anxiety for travel because of the long time frame that we've gone without, getting back on a jet. Buzzing around the globe was the norm not too long ago. So I do think the portfolio itself will help with a lot of that in terms of easing that anxiety while traveling.
I mean, a lot of us, we started obviously hearing about the pandemic, late last year, the start of this year, when the impacts hit, or when it hit hardest in late February, March. Did it sort of surprise you in any way, just how heavy the hit was to aviation, or was that something even back in the early part of the year that you were thinking, well, this is bad, this could have a massive impact on, it could have an impact on me personally, professionally, my teammates? I mean, did you see this coming, or have you been sort of surprised just by the the severity of how it's hit the aviation sector?
Yeah, no, I absolutely was severely surprised. I think it hit much bigger than I think most people ever would have imagined.
Yeah.
I think, at least in my thoughts, I believe what we were experiencing in February or even January was going to be the lowest point. But then you saw March come around, and we nosedived because of how fast this virus was spreading across the globe, and the mortality rate. And there was just so much unknown about what this virus could do to society, that the right decisions were made to lock down, and unfortunately that lockdown impacted our industry much larger than it did in others. Not to downplay the overall impact, but I think travel definitely took one of the biggest hits. So now it's just, we got to dig ourselves out of this hole and get back to some normalcy.
And how long do you see that taking? I mean, I think you, Haughton of Virgin say 2023. Is that something that you would go along with?
Yeah, I mean, there's obvious various plans depending on the business unit, right? For us in the cabin, on the cabin side, and especially for myself, I mean, what we're working towards right now is a 2-year recovery. But we've seen plans that stretch much longer than that. It'll depend on how fast the economy can bounce back. I think there's a lot of unknowns left out there. So, right now, the all eyes on a second wave. I think that would be extremely devastating, and a second pair of eyes on the performance of the economy at large.
And I mean, we're obviously in a period of huge global events. We've had the pandemic, and obviously, through the tragic events with like George Floyd, we've had sort of Black Lives Matter. We've had protests across the world. And we've
Right.
seen them in the UK. We've seen them in the US. I'm not sure what the situation has been like in Canada, but for someone, I'm very very interested to get your on what you're seeing, and as a decision maker within aviation, what you feel needs to be done to encourage more Black people, more people like yourself into sort of leadership positions within airlines.
Yeah, so thank you for that. Now, as it regards to Canada, and and the overall result of what happened to George in the U.S. Yeah, there's a ton of protest. A lot of people are now putting their hands up. They've been acknowledgement, at least, to say, yeah, society isn't perfect. So now what we're trying to do is to get to that perfect union. And a lot of conversations I've had, the theme that comes up generally is, well, we're not as bad, especially in Canada, and I will attest to that. But I mean, just that statement in itself, I think it shows that there is an issue. Not that bad means there is some bad. So how do we collectively work towards a future where we do have that perfect union? I'm not going to be. I'm not going to sit here and think that it'll happen tomorrow. But I am at least a bit optimistic, just given the outrage and the concern, and the acknowledgement that I think we're going to start seeing some reasonably good change in the near term.
Do you genuinely believe this is a tipping point now? I mean, we've maybe seen these horrible examples before, and there's been talk of change, and maybe it didn't happen the way I guess a lot of people wanted it to happen. But do you think now that it feels different this time, or not as the case?
It does, and I think like, look, 20 years ago, you didn't have as many Black executives, if at all, in a lot of these Fortune 500 companies. Now there's a few senior management individuals that represent the Black community. So I think all of us that collectively start putting our hands up, saying, we could do better. That's going farther. So in my mind, that is progress, right? We've made progress where there are Black people within senior structures that can now put their hand up and say, what, I think we need to do better. And I think going forward, you'll see more Black representation on boards and senior executive roles. And at that point, we can collectively say, hey, at least in the corporate world, we've made significant strides for equality. Let's see how we can destroy this construct of poverty and people living in significant disadvantage because they don't have the means. I think all corporations should have their eyes on that. The more people we pull up out of the slums, the more customers we have, right? Overall. So yeah, I do think it was a tipping point. I do think the pendulum now is shifting. There'll be a lot of short-term hot fixes, but medium-term policy change is going to be required for the long-term benefit of all of us.
And I'm just sort of curious about your own personal experiences. I mean, I know probably the satellite industry better than the aviation, so maybe you can, explain to me what it's been like building a career in aviation. and whether you feel, as a black man, it's been more difficult, whether you encountered casual racism. Tell me what it's been like more from a personal experience over the last few years for you as you've looked to sort of build your career.
Yeah, so I moved from Jamaica in 2008, December 25th, actually, 2008. And I'll say my career here, at least at Air Canada, has been the only company that I've worked for. It obviously hasn't been perfect as a black man, right? I mean, but you're not going to get that anywhere, and especially in a large corporation, you're going to have people who think a specific way that might negatively impact you. But what I'll say overwhelmingly, I think I've been welcomed, and I've been, I climbed the ladder based on my wits and my smarts, and not what I look like. And I think that's also a conversation that we need to have. I think there's a lot of smart Black people out there, if not most. So, it's how do we ensure that people move forward equally and are provided equal opportunity, versus trying to enact some sort of an affirmative action. I think ensuring that there's a commitment to equally look at everybody will help. And along my personal experience, that's what I've experienced. But I do know people that haven't experienced the exact same thing. It's different for a lot of Black people. So, for the ones that are kept down deliberately, I think now is a reckoning for those who are keeping them down, and let's move forward.
Yeah, I agree with that. And again, I think you're a terrific role model as well. And just to sort of end on the next few months. I mean, you've as we know, it's been a very busy time. You've spoken very elegantly about some of the challenges that yourself and Air Canada have faced over the past few months. Where does it go next now? How do you see the future of aviation over the next year? I mean, I think it's been one of those topics that's been a hot topic even beyond aviation. I mean, it's something we all talk about when we will feel comfortable getting on an aeroplane again. What's your view?
Yeah, I think we're on the cusp of redefining product specs, right? And why that's important is now we're going to have to convince people that we are the better and safest airline to fly with. You can still enjoy the luxuries of air travel. At the same time, we'll ensure that you're safe, and as safe as we can ensure that you can be. So it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a battle for market share. It's going to be a battle to win the hearts and minds of our customers out there. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting and fun, if you're an ad geek at least. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Well, I love to travel, so I'm looking forward to getting on an airplane again. And I've missed seeing people at conferences, and just the general vibe of it, I suppose. I mean, it's nice doing the virtual stuff. Of course, it's new, it's fresh, it's exciting, but we can't wait to host an event again and get people together. But yeah, well, I think you'll leave it there. And again, for those that, Norm is a terrific speaker, as you've seen today. He will be at our Global Connected Aircraft Summit virtual event, Cabin Chats, next week. He's on a great panel with the likes of Saudia, Qatar Airways, Smart Sky, Honeywell, and Collins. It's going to be a fantastic panel to kick off the event. It's our first virtual event in connected aircraft, so we're super excited. I just also want to thank Norm today for your time, and also talking about such a wide range of issues. I mean, I've known you a few years. I think you're a terrific role model for anybody, really. And I think you've done a fantastic job at Air Canada, and I wish you and your colleagues. We know it's tough in aviation. I've spoken to a lot of people through the Global Connected Aircraft Summit, so I know how tough it is for airlines right now. So I want to wish you, your family, your colleagues all the best. I know it's been a challenging few months, and we look forward to catching up with you very soon. And thank you for your time today.
Well, you're very welcome, Mark. And yeah, definitely excited. Let's catch up next week.
Thank you.